Hi guys, it's Joanne here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to cut this bustier blouse with a snatched waistline. If you're interested in something like this, watch this video to the end. Don't forget to like and share this video. Also, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. Turn on your post notification bell for more videos. So without wasting much of your time, let's get right into the tutorial. This is the pattern I'm going to be using for this tutorial, and I've already marked the vertical measurement. Okay, so this is the shoulder line here, and this is the chest line, the bust line here, the under bust line here. Okay, and this is the waistline, and of course this is the blouse length. So for the blouse length I used 25 inches. You want to measure your own blouse length, okay, to know what you actually want. So now after doing this, I'm going to be taking the horizontal measurement, that is the measurement across the body. Now on the shoulder length I'm going to be taking the shoulder measurement divided by 2. After taking that measurement, I'll come here now and come down here by 1 inch. Then on this neckline here, I'm going to be this same shoulder line. I'm going to be marking the neckline, which is 3 inches. That is the basic neckline. And I'm going to be connecting this point and this point here together, okay, to form my shoulder slope. You know, the shoulder is not entirely straight. Then on the chest line here, I'm going to be repeating what I marked for my shoulder measurement on the shoulder line, which is shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'm repeating that point here. Okay, so I'm going to be connecting this like this into a straight line. Then to mark the armhole, okay, the midpoint around this line here, I'm simply going to divide this measurement by 2. What I have here is 4. Okay, I'm going to come in here by ½ inch. I'm imputing ½ inch here. Then on this neckline here, I'm coming down here by 3 inches for the neck depth. Okay, I'm not going to be using this part, this yoke part, but for the purpose of clarity, I'm just simply going to mark this for those of you who want to attach yoke to your own. Okay, so on the chest line here, I'm going to take the bust line measurement divided by 4. And whatever I have, I'm going to be imputing that measurement here. So I'm working with a bust of 38 inches. So I'm going to connect this point here from the shoulder to the midpoint along the armhole down to the bust chest line, okay, to form the armhole like this. Now after doing this, I'm now going to take the dart intake. Okay, so to take the dart intake, you're going to measure your bust from your nipple points to the other nipple point, whatever you have. Divide that measurement into 2. Okay, for the measurement I'm working with here is 4.025. So I'm simply going to repeat the same measurement on the waistline, the under bust line, the bust line, the chest line, and of course the blouse length, which is also the hip line. Okay, so I'm now going to use my straight rule now to connect each of these points I marked earlier, okay, into a straight line. What I want to do here is that I want to take in the dart for this blouse. Okay, now after doing this, as you can see, I've gotten a straight line here. So on this line here, the under bust line here, I'm going to be taking in the dart. Okay, so taking the dart on this side here, I'm going to take in 2.025. Okay, I'm taking in 2.025 for the dart. I'm working with a very big bust. All right, so for you, if your bust is not as big as this, you can do 2 inch or even 1.75 or 1.5. Now on the center part here, I came in here by 1 inch. Then what I marked here on the under bust, I'm going to be marking the same thing here on the waistline. And on the center waistline here, I'm going to be doing the same thing, 1 inch. Then on the length, which is also the hip line, I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing. Now I'm going to take my straight rule now and connect these points here into a straight line. Okay, and the center here, I'm going to also connect it into a straight line. As you can see, I've taken in the dart. Okay, so from this point here now, okay, from this dart intake, I'm going to connect to the bust line. So to serve as a guide for you, I'm going to come down from the bust line here. I'm going to come down here by 1 inch, okay? You know, whatever I'm going to be covering will not get to the bust line, okay? So I'm coming down here by 1 inch to serve as a guide. Now I'm going to use this cuff rule here to connect these points, all right? So initially I used a broken line for this curve because I wasn't too sure. I wanted to see how it turned out, and it was okay for me. So on this center here, I'm going to do the same thing, make a curve here to meet to the dart leg on the under bust. So I'm simply going to use my pencil to redraw what the broken line, retrace it, okay, to make it visible for you guys to see. Now this is what I have here. Now on this chest line here, I'm going to go up by, let's say from the shoulder line here, I'm going to come down here by 7 inches. Okay, so now this totally depends on what you want. If you want your cleavage to be very open, then you can go down by 8 or 8.5 or 7.5. Okay, so I made a line across, as you can see. Now I did not know that the my camera was not actually videoing this part, okay, the part I drew. So what I did was this: I measured the shoulder and I divided that measurement by 2, and I imputed that part there. So from here now, I use my straight rule now to connect it to meet to the bust line. I hope you're following. Okay, so I didn't know, my camera did not actually video that part. Okay, so from this line here on the upper chest line, I am going to be taking in the darts. Okay, so on this side here, the center part, I came in here by 0.75, and on the side I went out by 1 inch. So I'm going to use a straight rule. Okay, this time around I'm using a straight rule to connect this line. Okay, from this part here I marked 1 inch. Don't be confused. Connecting it back to the bust line, and on the center I marked 0.75. So to eliminate this pointiness around the bust point line, I'm going to be blending this like this. Okay, now having done this, I am now going to start taking the body measurement. Okay, so to take the body measurements, initially I had measured the busts divided by 4. So I'm going to replace this that here, okay, and add to that measurement I have on the chest line. Okay, and I'm going to be marking it here like this. Okay, I've replaced whatever that I took out. If not, I'll run short of this of my fabric. Okay, I don't want to run short of it. So on the bust line here, I'm going to mark exactly what I marked on the chest line. I'm going to be repeating that same measurement on the bust line here. Okay, so on the under bust line, I'm going to take the under bust measurement divided by 4. Then before then, I'm going to be marking the waistline, okay, because I'm going to be snatching this blouse. Okay, so the reason why I took the waistline and before the under is because the waistline and the under bust is the same measurement. If your under bust is bigger than your waistline, you want to take it, or if your waistline is bigger than your waist measurement is bigger than your under bust, you definitely want to take the different measurement. Okay, so now on the waist here, I'm going to be taking the waist measurement 29 inches. So from 29 inches, I'm going to be subtracting 3 inches from that measurement. What I will have will be 26 inches. I'll now divide 26 inches by 4, replace the dart I took on the waistline and replace it there on the waist measurements. I'll do the same thing on the under bust. Okay, then on the length, I'm simply going to take the hip measurements, then divide that measurement by 4 and replace the dart intake. All right, so after doing this, I'm going to connect each of these points like this. So from the bust here, I connect, and I'm going to connect to meet to the under bust like this. I hope you're following what I'm doing. Going to connect to meet to the under bust. So from the under bust, I'm going to connect to meet to the waistline like this. Okay, so from the waist here, I'm going to use a slide curve to connect these points from the waistline to the hip line. Okay, so for this part, you're seeing I'm using a slight curve. Okay, so now on this length here, on this side here, I'm going to be coming up by 1.5 inches. This is because I want to give it a nice curve around the waist area. Okay, although we are going to be making an alteration when I'm going to be sewing this, but for now this is how I'm going to be marking this. All right, so for the bust line here, I'm going to be taking the bust darts. So for this part here, come down here by 1 inch. Okay, that's for the bust dart of this blouse. I'm going to come down here by 1 inch. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to take my straight rule now to connect it to meet to the bust point line like this. Okay, So after doing this, I'm going to now shade this part because I'm going to be cutting this out. I'm going to shade other parts that I'll be cutting out later in this video. Okay, so now next thing I'm going to do now will be that I'm going to come up here. All right, I'm going to come up here around the center parts. Let me shift this for you guys to see. On this upper chest line here, okay, I'm going to come down here by half of an inch. This is because I want to create a sweetheart neckline. Okay, so for you want to measure from your shoulder however you want your cleavage to be open. You're simply going to mark that. Okay, I want to form a sweetheart neckline around this area. Okay, so now I'm going to blend this back to the half-inch point I came down by. Now, okay, on this part on this side, I'm not going to leave this armhole like this. You know, it's going to be a kind of a tube with a tiny strap. So I'm going to be working on this armhole like this. So simply using my slide curve to just curve it like this, as you can see. But you want to measure from the side here, come up by 0.75. Okay, from the chest line, come up by 0.75 and connect to meet to the dart leg on the side bust. Okay, now having done this, I'm going to now shade this part to show you guys. I'm going to be cutting this out later. So for this part here, this dart leg here and on the side, I'm going to measure them. So if you notice, the dart leg on the side is slightly longer than that of the center. So I'm simply measuring each of them. So for this part here, what I have on the side was 4.025 and on the center was 4 inch. So I'm adding 0.25 to the center and I'm simply going to blend it back into the neckline like this. Okay, now I'm going to also blend that area. Okay, for those of you that want to attach yoke to your own, I'm going to blend this, okay, for clarification. All right, so now as you can see, I am through with this front area for this front side. This is what I have here. For this part here, all right, I'm going to measure what I have here because you know I've extended the measurements on this side, so I'm going to replace the darts there. So the initially I replaced that of 1 inch, so I'm going to be adding 0.75 to it because after I measured what I have on the upper chest line, it was 1.75. okay, so I'm replacing that in order not to run short of the fabric. Okay, so having done this, I'm going to now start cutting. Like I said, if you're adding yoke to your own, you will not need to do extend the measurement on the side. Just cut your armhole and that's it. So I am just simply cutting this out here. As you can see, follow the way I'm cutting this out. Okay, so I'm label this as the yoke. I'm going to put that away. This is the center front. All right, so for this side here, I'm going to close this dart like this. Okay, when you're closing it, please make sure you don't overlap it. Make sure you close it properly. Just follow the line you have here. Okay, I'm using my paper tape now to put this in place. All right, so now after doing this, you can see the bust dart is closed, but there is an alteration here. Okay, so I'm going to be replacing whatever is missing on this part, which is 0.25. I just blended it back to the bust line and I'm just going to cut this out like this. Cut that here. So this is the front part. This is how it is. And now I'm going to put this away and bring the back and start cutting the back piece now. Okay, this is a back pattern. Okay, I've already marked the start point line. From there now I'm going to take the chest line, which is 9 inches. I'm going to take the waistline, which is 17 inches, and I'm going to be marking this part like this. Okay, I'm going to be marking these parts like this. So having done this, I'm now going to take the shoulder measurement divided by 2 on this chest line here, and on the shoulder line here, I am going to take the shoulder measurement divided by 2 as well, and I'm going to connect these 2 points like this together into a straight line. Okay, like what we did for the front. Okay, so now on this shoulder line here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, then take the armhole midpoint, which is 4 inches for this measurement. Then on the neckline here, I am going to go in by 3 inches for the neck width and connect the shoulder slope like this. Okay, then on this chest line here, I'm going to be taking the bust measurement divided by 4. Then whatever I have, I'm going to be imputing that here, and also bring my cuff row and connect the armhole from the shoulder here to the midpoint like this. This is for the back. Okay, then next thing I'm going to do now would be to take the nipple to nipple measurement. Okay, like what we did for the front, just measure your nipple to nipple and divide that measurement by 2 and impute. So I'm basically imputing on the waistline, the bust line, and the blouse length. So I'm taking my straight rule now to connect these points into a straight line. So after doing this, I'm going to be taking the darts, all right, dart intake for the back bodies. Okay, so to take the dart intake, I'm going to be taking in 1 inch. That is, I'm going to be dividing 1 inch by 2, share it into the 2 parts, which is the center and the side. That is ½ inch on both sides. Okay, I did that on the bust line, the waistline, and on the hip line or the blouse length. Now I'm going to take my straight rule now and connect these points into a straight line. Okay, this is the dart intake for the back. All right, so having done this, I'm going to now start taking the body measurements of these back bodies. Okay, so now I've already taken the bust measurement. I'm replacing the dart around the bust line. Then on the waistline, I'm going to be taking the waist measurement like what I did for the front. I'm doing it on the back part here. And on the hip line, I'm going to take the hip measurement divided by 4 and replacing the dart here, which is 1 inch for that intake. Okay, so I'm going to be connecting this, but I noticed earlier that I was supposed to mark 17 inches from the shoulder line to the waistline, but I marked 18 inches. So I'm going to have to clean this up and re-measure the waistline. Okay, from the shoulder to the waistline, I'm supposed to mark 17 inches for the back bodies, but I ended up marking 18 inches. So I'm going to have to remark this. All right, so from the shoulder line here, I'm going to come down here by 17 inches. Okay, I'm going to come down here by 17 inches. I'm going to take my straight rule now and connect this into a straight line. So this will now be the new waistline, no longer using the old one. I made a mistake and marked 18 inches instead of 17 inches. I hope you're following what I'm doing here, so don't be confused. Okay, so now I am going to remeasure the waistline here, the waist measurements. Divide that measurement. If your waist is 30, take away 3 inches from 30. That will be 27, and divide 27 into 4. Okay, that is for snatching. Then you're going to replace the dart you have on the waistline. So earlier on I had already marked the hip line divided by 4, the hip measurement divided by 4, and I replaced the dart on the hip as well. So I used my slide curve to connect these points here. Okay, so on the side here, on the length, I'm coming up by 1.5 inch. What I did for the front, I'm doing it here for the back bodies as well. So I'm going to shade this part out because I'm going to be cutting this dart out. Okay, so for the chest line here, it depends on how open you want your back to be. All right, so I'm fine with the 9 inches what I have here for the chest line. So I'm simply going to blend it back to the chest line. So around the armhole, like I did for the front, I'm going to also do the same thing for the back. So to do that, you have to measure what you have from for your armhole extension. Okay, so measure that part. What I had was 0.75. I'm going to be replacing that measurement here. so that by the time I finish sewing this, everything will be equal. Okay, so I'm simply connecting it back to the chest line on the back like this, and I'm going to also extend these measurements here. Okay, so this is basically it for this. I'm going to start cutting this part out, but before then, I forgot that for this part here, since I'm going to be lacing it, I'm going to come in here by 2.5 inches. Then on the hip here, I'm going to come in here by half of an inch, and I'm going to take my rule now and connect these 2 points. Okay, from this top here, I'm going to be connecting it to meet to this down here. Okay, so this totally depends on what you want. If you want a zipper for your own, then fine, you don't need to do this. But if you want lacing, then you can do 2 inches, you can do 1.5, you can do 2.5. It totally depends on what you want. Okay, so this is what my client wants. I'm labeling this as a center back and side back, and I'm making an arrow here to indicate the upper part. Okay, now I'm going to cut this out. So watch the way I'm cutting this part out. Okay, so this is what I have here. So in my next tutorial, I am going to be cutting the fabric for both the front and the back. All right, so I'm going to be dropping that video very soon, and I'm going to be stitching, sewing this up together. You want to see how it is. So thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for my next one.